Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Find a living in fisheries. The UAS Fisheries Technology Program offers online study from anywhere in Alaska, plus labs and workshops in many Alaska towns.
Is most likely a chum.
Find your living without leaving where you are. Fisheries Technology from UAS.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening and good Friday to you and yours wherever you may be in Alaska. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service. It is the 25th of November, and as we move on toward the weekend now, it is going to be a very active period for southern parts of Alaska, all the way from the Aleutians through the Gulf of Alaska, including south central and southeastern Alaska, and even parts of the Alaska Range itself. If you'd like to check your forecast anywhere you go this weekend, you can do that on the phone, 800-472-0391. Of course, we're online, weather.gov/Alaska or /Fairbanks/Juneau or /Anchorage, as you well know. And the email is a great way to get a hold of us. If you got a question about where to find something you need online, or if you'd just like to send us some information, you can hit the TV team that way at nws.ar.tvweather@noaa.gov. And of course, we're on Facebook and Twitter as well. Be sure and communicate with us that way and share information around your community. It helps spread the message and keep us all weather ready. Now, I've got a whole stack of stuff to talk about tonight. Across southeastern Alaska, around the northern Lynn Canal, we have a winter weather advisory looking for about 4 inches of snow overnight generally around Haines and the Haines Highway. Could create some tricky driving conditions in that area, so heavy wet snow will probably be fairly slick there. It's going to have a lot of high water content, so plan on about 4 inches of snow around Haines and the Haines Highway. That'll go through about 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's one. Next one up, a wind advisory across the eastern Alaska Range, generally west of the Toke Cutoff. We're talking about south winds gusting to about 55 miles per hour. That is a wind advisory that'll go from about noon tomorrow, Saturday, until about midnight. So the winds will be coursing through some of the higher terrain in the eastern Alaska Range. Winds west of the Toke Cutoff could be up to 55 miles per hour. That's two. A winter weather advisory is also in effect for the Turnagain Pass area there, and not the whole eastern Kenai Peninsula and Prince William Sound, but just a tiny smidgen of that right about there. And what we're worried about is wind and snow. So a blowing snow advisory there for the Turnagain Pass region from about 5 o'clock Saturday night until 5 a.m. Sunday morning. So if you're coming back late to Anchorage from Homer, from Kenai, from Seward, and you're going through Turnagain Pass, or perhaps you're going southbound, heading out to Kenai or wherever you're going, be careful because visibility is probably going to drop and conditions are going to be tricky going through Turnagain Pass. Could see 4 to 9 inches of snow, gusts up to 35 miles per hour with that east wind. So snow and blowing snow will develop as we go through Saturday and then intensify during Saturday evening. So plan on going slow if you're coming back late or moving southward across through Turnagain Pass, 4 to 9 inches and gusts to 35 miles per hour. Poor visibility. Probably not great driving conditions. Now, let's move our attention out to the west. Around the west coast right now, we have a blizzard warning in effect from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Saturday, and this will generally be west of King Salmon. Expecting 3 to 7 inches of snow there. Northeast winds 15 to 30 miles per hour and gusts to 40. So that's a blizzard warning around King Salmon again with snow and blowing snow and reduced visibility that could go below 1/4 of a mile. Worst conditions will be from Dillingham northward into interior Bristol Bay. Winds and snow begin to diminish probably Saturday evening, and then things will gradually improve and you'll be able to see. But whiteout conditions are going to be possible during this time. It's a blizzard. That means snow and wind and very dangerous and poor visibility. So probably a good time to hunker down. That is again north and west of King Salmon. Blizzard warning. That'll go from 6 a.m. Saturday to 9 p.m. in the evening, generally west of King Salmon. Next up, a blizzard warning for Kuskokwim Bay. This is going to be bringing about 1 to 3 inches of snow. Visibility, of course, a quarter mile or less because it's a blizzard, and northeasterly winds gusting up to 35 miles per hour. This is probably going to bring in the Kuskokwim Delta coast during early Saturday morning or so. Looks like this will gradually improve in the afternoon. So this is going to be generally a quick move in from early tomorrow morning during the day, but the worst of it probably in the morning there. So along the Kuskokwim Bay, and again, you're dealing with active weather right now. Things should be gradually improving from where they were last night. Now, a look down south, we're on to about, what, 5 or 6 now. We have a high wind warning. That's going to be for the Alaska Peninsula. That goes from noon until Saturday night, noon tomorrow, Saturday night. West winds 50 to 65 miles per hour sustained and gusts to 80 there. That's for the Alaska Peninsula. And winds will probably pick up as we get into the morning hours and persist through a good chunk of the evening. Strongest winds probably from Cold Bay west during the afternoon and early evening hours. And for you folks in Cold Bay, and it looks like that wind may shift just to the right direction as we get into the late afternoon and early evening, where it could really pack a punch. So be prepared for that, and maybe an hour or two on either side, but it looks like there will be kind of a narrow window where the winds will really go for a while, even if they're not going that strong the whole time. So be prepared as the winds are starting to change around. If they hit that sweet spot, and you know what that is, it could really be rough and tumble for a little while. High wind warning from 3 o'clock in the morning tonight until 6 p.m. on Saturday. This will be for the eastern Aleutians now. So we're talking about folks out there from Nikolsky and Unalaska. Winds will increase after midnight tonight and diminish from west to east as we go through the late part of Saturday afternoon. Strongest winds from east to west in the east to west oriented valleys there for the eastern chain. Dutch Harbor will probably see lower sustained winds, but strong and erratic gusts, as you well know there if you park the ship in Unalaska Bay. Looks like, okay, that'll go from 3 o'clock until 6 p.m. on Saturday, again with wind gusts up to 90 miles per hour for the eastern chain. And a little bit further west, 9 o'clock tonight is where we start our high wind warnings for the central Aleutians. West winds 50 to 65 and gusts to 80 there. Westerlies will pick up through the rest of the evening hours and then gradually diminish from west to east, but looks like, again, that will affect your region as we head through 9 o'clock tonight until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. So we've got wind across the chain, wind up the Alaska Peninsula, blizzard conditions possible generally north and west of Dillingham and King Salmon all the way up the Kuskokwim Delta. We've got wind in the eastern Alaska Range. We've got snow and wind across Turnagain Pass. And it's still going to snow across a large part of southwest Alaska and south central Alaska in several waves. There's quite a bit more lined up behind us. Let's get on to the weather, shall we? Here's a look at low pressure across the northern Gulf, and you can see one system here. This is moving eastward, bringing a front into southeastern Alaska. That means rain and snow, obviously, right now over the Haines and region and the Lynn Canal there. That's the winter weather advisory there. And then we've got another system here across the northern Gulf, and then we've got another powerful low that's working its way across into the southern Bering Sea. And there's more behind that. In the meantime, we have a wealth of cold dropping southward, enough to create conditions that are more favorable for snow in places like southwestern Alaska, south central Alaska, and even southeastern Alaska, especially the northern end. As a result of that, and the combination of strong flow of warm air coming up from the south to meet these weather systems right over the Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula, don't be surprised if you hear the rumble of thunder or see some lightning there out over the open water. A lot of that will be passing through and kind of combining forces there as it works across the northern Pacific and into the central and eastern Gulf, especially as we go through the remainder of the weekend. Folks in South Central, get your snow shovels ready. It looks like it is going to snow several times as we go through the weekend here, starting probably mid to late morning tomorrow. Snow should pick up, so driving conditions, whether you're in for business or in for pleasure and shopping, conditions will be changing there, and that means aviators too. Travel by plane may be a little more difficult going through some of your favorite passes. Across southeast, we saw some pockets of rain and snow today. Looked like Juneau picked up a little more snow yesterday, and more is on the way, it looks like. As you look at south central Alaska, had just a little bit of snow in the Anchorage area, not a whole lot to write home about, but freshened up the white just a little bit. Out across the central chain, a 982 millibar low there, a trough of low pressure across the central Bering and high pressure across the northern Yukon. and pockets of very light snow and fog reported across the North Slope. As we go through tonight, low pressure up across the northern Gulf at 994 millibars there will bring a little bit of rain and snow to the region, especially again the northern Lynn Canal around Haines, maybe up to 4 inches there. Snow and blowing snow for southwestern Alaska, and wind for the central and western chain, especially the central Aleutians where a high wind warning will be in effect. Across the eastern Aleutians, high winds will kick in for you as we go through the early morning hours there and during the day, and high winds will develop across the Alaska Peninsula. As low pressure works into Bristol Bay at 966 millibars, that will create blizzard conditions across southwestern Alaska again. So again, you are under warnings for that. High winds will continue spreading eastward. We don't have any warnings out for Kodiak or south central Alaska for wind anyway, but wind and snow will combine around the Turnagain Pass region to make travel more tricky as you go into Saturday night and early Sunday morning. So again, if you're driving up and down the Kenai Peninsula on the Seward Highway, be prepared for changing conditions there, especially in Turnagain Pass. And as we look at the Alaska Range, there will be wind flowing through some of the passes west of the Tok Cutoff, gusts there over 55 miles per hour. You'll still see rain and snow across southeast, but you won't be bearing the brunt of it just yet until we get into Sunday, where low pressure will be a lot closer to home at 982 millibars and a front swinging through the Panhandle. Watch for showers and thunderstorms offshore, but wind will be working through and conditions will be changing, so pay attention to your local weather forecast office in Juneau. They'll provide any warnings, watches, or advisories needed to get you through the rest of the weekend and started on Monday. Now for South Central, if you're planning to go back to work and school on Monday, conditions will probably be wider. There will be new snow on the ground, and more snow could be falling Sunday night into Monday. So if you're in the Mat-Su area, or if you're in the Kenai Peninsula or the Anchorage region, plan on maybe an interesting start for Monday. Something to keep watch on there with that low pressure system in the northern Gulf. Out to the west, look, there's two more. 995 millibar low south of the Pribilofs with rain and snow mix across the Alaska Peninsula and the chain. Not to mention more wind. This doesn't look to be as windy as the current weather maker that by that point will be in the eastern Gulf, but there will also be snow across the central and eastern interior, probably around Fairbanks, and also across the Chukchi coast, wrapping into unsettled weather across the central and western Bering. So, my goodness, that's a lot going on for the weekend, isn't it? Be safe out there. Here's a look at southeast today. Temps in the 30s and 40s from Sitka, 43, 38 in the capital city. Ketchikan and Annette, we're in the lower 40s today. Hyder, 36 all the way over in Stewart. 36 degrees, or 34 in Yakutat. Prince William Sound saw temps in the 20s and 30s. Anchorage was 22 at 3 o'clock, 30 in Homer, 21 in Talkeetna, 3 above in Fairbanks, a milder afternoon for you, and 6 below in Eagle, while it was 14 below in Northway. 18 below in Fort Yukon, as well as AKwx Pass. Single digits, but in positive territory for most of the North Slope. 8 above in Barrow, 1 above in Kaktovik, 3 below though in Kivalina, and 2 below in Kotzebue Sound. 1 above in Shishmaref, and it was 2 above in Nome. 19 big degrees there in Savunga and St. Lawrence Island. Bethel had 10, McGrath was 5 above, and as you got into Bristol Bay, temperatures there were above freezing just about in every location. As you go down from Port Hayden southward toward False Pass and Cold Bay, temps were in the upper 30s and lower 40s. 38 in St. Paul, 35 for St. George, 37 in Unalaska and Dutch Harbor, and mid-30s out across the west and central chain. Overnight low temperatures will stay well below zero, it looks like, for many in the central and northern parts of the state. Southwest, single digits, teens and 20s there. 28 degrees in Kodiak, 30s for southeast, 30s and 40s for the peninsula and the chain. St. Paul, 35. High temps tomorrow back in the mid-20s to lower 30s. Kodiak, 40 degrees, upper 30s to mid-40s for southeast. The central interior in the single digits and low teens, -4 around Tanana, 17 below for Arctic Village, 18 below for AKwx Pass, and most areas at or just below zero on the north slope there. Barrow at 2 above, 5 above in Nome, and about 15 degrees in Bethel with the possibility of blizzard conditions in the region. 39 in St. Paul tomorrow. Here's your flying weather. Well, no doubt about it. IFR conditions will be possible for a large part of the southwest, central and eastern chain and the peninsula, north slope, and of course across northern parts of southeast. As we go through the afternoon, southwest probably will not see any big improvements there. You can see the front working its way across the western Gulf and across the Chugach Range and into northern parts of southeast. Look for IFR hit and miss across the interior and across the north slope, including at times some areas very close to your favorite passes. Here are your pass conditions. Anaktuvik and Adigan Pass, expecting MVFR. The north side, though, likely coming out into IFR at times. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass look to be IFR. Rainy Pass, IFR. Windy Pass, also looking for IFR, not to mention the turbulence around the west. IFR for Isabel Pass, Mentasta Pass, MVFR. We expect increasing, or decreasing I should say, deteriorating weather in Tanita Pass with IFR by the afternoon. Same goes for Portage Pass, IFR conditions there, and for Chilkoot and White Pass most of the day. The freezing levels show that warm intrusion coming up from the south, and it'll probably help to make showers and thunderstorms there on that south side of the storm. In the meantime, most of Alaska is below freezing there on the mainland, as freezing levels would indicate this time of the year. Icing potential is certainly there and elevated, occasional moderate across Bristol Bay, the Alaska Peninsula, and the eastern chain. As you go further north, levels drop as low as 1,000 feet there for light to isolated moderate across the northern Gulf and into parts of southeast. As we look at the jet stream, no doubt about it, the superhighway of weather is right over the Aleutians and the northern Gulf, just adding a whole bunch of punch to these surface weather systems. And because of that, they are a little bit more intense than they have been, and certainly more active than we have been in several weeks around many parts of southern Alaska. Wind speeds aloft at 3,000 feet, anywhere from 150 to 160 knots. Southerlies are working up eastern parts of the interior, but the cold is dropping southward across the west coast and becoming very vigorously intertwined with this low pressure system across Bristol Bay. Wind speeds there to the south, 20 to as high as 85 knots, and gentle southwesterlies blowing over southeastern Alaska, Bristol Bay, and it looks like, or Prince William Sound I should say, about 40 knots there. You see the winds start to pick up as they move into the Kenai Peninsula. Wind speeds are a little more vigorous here across the eastern chain and the Alaska Peninsula, between 40 and 80 knots from west to east, again helping to increase those high wind warning threat areas. Northeasterlies over Kotzebue Sound, 35 knots, and southerlies over the central and eastern interior with a northeast wind down the Chukchi coast at 3,000 feet. Turbulence then will be focused on southwest. That combined with visibilities, not a good flying day at all. Around south central and the Alaska Range, watch for occasional to widespread moderate with high wind warnings across some of the passes in the eastern Alaska Range. Considerable chop across the western Brooks Range below 4,000 feet. And you'll see worsening conditions in the southeast as we go into Sunday and Monday. That's a look at your aviation forecast. I'll be back with your marine weather in just a few minutes.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. Thank you to Alaska Public Media for allowing us to bring you hangar flying. This evening, we are happy to have as our guest Jamie Patterson Sims. She's the owner of Skytrek Alaska, which was recently recognized by the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association as one of the 2016 Flight Training Excellence Award winners. Skytrek Alaska Flight Training was named one of the outstanding flight schools. Jamie, welcome to Hangar Flying.
Thank you, Mary. It's a pleasure to be here.
Congratulations. This is pretty exciting. You're one of the top flight schools in the United States, not just Alaska, but the United States.
Yes, I was very honored to be chosen as one. I give all the credit to my students and my customers. They are just an amazing group of people.
Aw. Well, this award is even more impressive since you haven't been operating as a flight school for a really long time. I know you were a guest on Hangar Flying when you first started, but can you tell us a little bit about your business and how long the flight school has been in existence?
Well, I started in June of 2014, so it's been almost 2.5 years.
Wow.
So I've really put a lot of effort and energy into my students and helping the business grow and connecting with the aviation population here in Alaska.
What kind of instruction do you offer at Skytrek?
Well, our primary focus right now is on private pilot students, and we do a few instrument students. We have the capability, we have the aircraft to do both of those type of students. So right now we do a lot of ground also.
And explain, now ground school is something that's required for private pilots.
Yes, ground school is required for private pilots, not required, but it's very helpful for them to get that basic knowledge and understanding of aerodynamics, the regulations, and everything that goes into learning how to fly. So it's really important that they have that basic solid foundation of knowledge in order to go forward with their flight training. It's just super helpful.
So I suppose in a structured environment where you are signed up for classes and you have assignments, a person who was interested in learning about flying or not even sure that they wanted to be a pilot, but they could take a ground school course and learn by themselves or with a friend?
They could take an online course. Sometimes people like the structure of an instructor. At SkyTruck Alaska, we have a team training model where we have 2 flight instructors who teach the ground school. So we team teach. It's 36 hours, it's 6 weeks, it's twice a week. So it really covers the entire area of all their knowledge areas that they'll need to know in order to pass their FAA written examination.
So you mentioned a team teaching approach. How many instructors do you have?
I have myself as a full-time instructor, and then I have about 4 or 5 part-time instructors who either do ground or they do ground and flying, where they teach ground lessons on the ground, and they also teach in the aircraft.
Okay. And what types of aircraft do you use? You said you could do instrument training as well as primary flight instruction. What kinds of aircraft?
Right. I have 2 aircraft right now. I have a Cessna 150. And
everyone loves
yes,
those.
Yes, it's been one of my successful. It is one of my. It has been a great trainer. Everybody loves to be in that Cessna 150. It's a very solid trainer. It just has it's a great learning tool, a great teaching tool for myself. And also we have a 172, a Cessna 172. And that has a little bit more advanced avionics. That's used a lot for instrument training. It's also used for people who just want a little bit more room in the airplane. So a little bit heavier, a little bit faster, but people enjoy flying both of those airplanes.
And that might be a good starter airplane for somebody who knows at some point they're going to want a 185 or something a little bit bigger.
Yes, yes. In fact, I have many students who have transitioned from the Cessna 150, and then halfway through the training they'll start in the 172, and then after they get their license I'll start training them in their 182 or their higher performance aircraft. So it's a good training model where they know about how to transition from aircraft to aircraft to something faster and a little bit more powerful. So it's been a great, I love my 2 airplanes.
Well, I think we're going to have to stop about here so that we don't get cut off in the middle of the next conversation. But we look forward to having you back on our next show, and we're going to talk some more about SkyTruck and some of the flight training that you do.
Great. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks for being here, Jamie. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed our session on hangar flying today. Please watch us next time, and until then, fly safely.
Thanks, Mary. Winds won't be too bad on the inside waters for southeast tomorrow, 10 to 15 knots or so with seas around 3 to 4 feet. Even the outer coast isn't so bad, 25 knots or so with south and southeasterlies and 10 to 12 foot seas for Saturday. As we get into Sunday, you'll see a little bit of a change and still not so bad. Inside waters come up a little bit, 25 to 30 knots, sustained winds from the south and southeast, 5 to 6 foot seas. So, things are changing for sure. As we get along the outer coast, 25 to 30 knots. It looks like more of an easterly flow outside of Icy Cape and around Yakutat, and south and southwesterlies develop from Sitka southward through Craig and Klawock, and 8 to 9 foot seas there. 16 foot seas outside of Cross Sound and west of Gustavus, 18 foot seas though up north. So things starting to get a little choppy. The wind's still not as bad as they could be though, right? Now let's look at south central and Prince William Sound northeasterlies at 15 knots with a 3 foot sea. Look at east of Kodiak Island, southwesterlies 45 knots with a 29 foot sea. East winds coming across the Barren Islands 35 knots, and northeasterlies south of Callaghan Island with a westerly flow over the northern part of Cook Inlet on Saturday. As we get into Sunday, everything starts to pull in behind low pressure now parked in the northern Gulf. 20 to as high as 45 knots across the north and western Gulf. No big change inside of Prince William Sound at this point. North and westerlies down Cook Inlet and into Shelikof Strait with 6 to as high as 10 foot seas there, and seas coming up to 25 feet east of Kodiak Island. So plan for higher gusts. Again, obviously not a great day to be out on the water, and conditions get even worse as we head west. Southeasterlies inside of Bristol Bay on Saturday, 40 knots with a 9 foot sea, 55 knots down the coast with a 21 foot sea. 42-foot seas south of King Cove and Sandpoint, and hurricane force warnings there with higher gusts. Obviously, it is going to be a very rough and tumble day across the North Pacific. Conditions improve a little bit on Sunday. Westerlies for all areas, 35 to 40 knots for the Bering Sea coast, and 13 to 15-foot seas. 23 to 28-foot seas across the North Pacific coast there. Winds up to 50 knots from Chignik to Castle Cape, and higher gusts there on Sunday. For the Aleutians, hurricane force winds from Atka eastward through the eastern Aleutians, 65 knots in all areas. Wind gusts again could top out over 85 miles per hour. 28 to 29-foot seas across the Bering Sea coast, 34 to 39-foot seas across the Pacific. Lesser winds out to the west, but still powerful stuff there. Storm force across the central chain, and 35 to 40 knots from Adak westward, with seas there from 15 to 18 feet. By Sunday, conditions gradually improving. Still looking at some stronger winds there across the central and eastern chain. 20 to 21-foot seas on the Bering Sea coast, and 17 to 22-foot seas across the Pacific coast, and 30 to 35-knot winds from the west and northwest across the western chain on Sunday. For the west coast, northeasterlies there, 30 to 35 across the north, but from the Kuskokwim Delta through the Pribilofs, 40 to 45. 11 to 15-foot seas there on Saturday. Watch for heavy freezing spray to develop. North and northeasterlies off the coast will diminish on Sunday, but still looking for some stronger winds across the Kuskokwim Delta. 30 knots with a 9-foot sea, 11-foot seas for the Pribilofs. For the North Slope, it's a great day. North and northeasterlies for the Beaufort Sea, 10-knot winds there. Northeasterlies pick up from 15 to as high as 30 knots from Cape Lisburne into Kotzebue Sound. Seas there from 7 to 8 feet, becoming a little more northerly on Sunday, and light winds from the northeast across the Beaufort Sea over the ice on Sunday. Recapping tonight's weather, we have a winter weather advisory for Haines and the Haines Highway, up to 4 inches there. That'll go through tonight and tomorrow. Out across the west, blizzard warnings are in effect now, and high wind warnings will be in effect starting in the central and eastern chain tomorrow, and winds may blow there up to 85 miles per hour in some cases there. A winter weather advisory for the Seward Highway and Turning in Pass area tomorrow night and into Sunday. Changing your driving plans, I hope. Please be careful if you're heading to and from Anchorage on the Seward Highway, and be careful out there. We'll see you again tomorrow.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.